Let me start by the context. Zimbabwean politics is a bit different from South African democracy. I want to celebrate your presence. As a civil society, you are still able to find each other. You know, as workers' parties, you know, civil society doing work around in communities, you're still able to convene in such conferences and have conversations about your politics. That is not possible in Zimbabwean context. I think a lot has changed over the years. I think with the fall of Mugabe in 2017, no, we expected a lot. I think after 37 years of Mugabe rule, then the next thing, guys, you expect better. Okay, so that's expectation. But I think from 2017 to date, I think the regime has consolidated into a monster. I think it has evolved into something that we never expected. Myself as an individual, I was willing to give it some bit of chance to say, things could possibly change. This is the hope that we had. Okay. Not getting into politics, but I thought, no, I think the regime was hitting the right notes, talking about engagement, opening space for civil society to participate, blah, 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 blah. I mean, so that re-engagement talk was hopeful, was positive, and there was opportunity to seriously want to give the regime a chance. But over the years, I think things have turned haywire. So I think we're talking about different politics to date. So the opportunities for engagement like this is slowly narrowing. There's constantly shrinking of democratic space, weaponization of the law, militarizing, and so forth. So we can't exactly convene without the regime, always throwing its famous line, "You are engaging in regime change agenda." So I think one of the dynamics that I want you guys to also ask yourselves as civil society, what are you really? Are you civil society or are you politicians? So I think that line is very important, because you don't want to be politicians and do civil work at the same time. One, it damages your credibility in your communities, and also damages your credibility with politicians. So I think it's a critical choice that you really want to make. And this is one of the pitfalls of civil society in Zimbabwe, tumbling into politics. And I know I come from civil society, and I know a lot of my colleagues use civil society space as a platform to get into politics. So it's a danger that you want to really critically, really think about it. So don't be naive to think that if you want to be like a politician, the reaction will be political reaction. That's what you get. Regimes will not sit back and just say no. The practice is that democratic right. They will not do that. They will deal you like politicians. So it's a choice that you have, right? And a lot of issues are taking place in South Africa. We talked about mass protests, and earlier on yesterday you talked about also ANC losing ground in some constituents, some areas. That is the same in Zimbabwe. The politics is bad. That I think over the last 5 years, yes, the government talks about there's positive re-engagement and it's yielding results, and the GDP has increased. It's growing. The economy is growing at 5.7% annually. Look, that is capitalism talking. I think in real terms. So when I talk about success must be distributed also into my pocket. It must also translate into people's pockets. The level of poverty has increased over the last 5 years to the point that, look, I think if I'm being honest, I'm a researcher, yes, but sometimes you also take a personal view. I think people are just fed up with the system. I think fed up with the lies. But also don't be naive to assume that because people are fed up, they will also vote for the alternative, which addresses the question that we talked about yesterday. Do people rationally vote? Are ANC voters rational? I think as a voter, voters are rational. We talked about slums. People benefit from politics. Bad politics, whether good or bad, people always play politics. Communities play politics. Even the ones you program in, they also play politics. They also play you against the system. And these are people that you seriously want to look at that as well. There are people who possibly benefit from the regime, even doing illegalities, and they play you or they play politics to get protection from the system. It happens. It also happens in Zimbabwe. I think the most talked about thing in Zimbabwe is land. Land, land ownership. During elections, we talked about, right now they're talking about title deeds to people who illegally acquired land, even in the urban areas, that, okay, we are going to give you title deeds. And yeah, people buy it. People buy it. I mean, you're selling your vote because it's talking about, possessing a particular piece of land that I acquired illegally to legalize that particular thing. And that's, it's like selling a vote. So, for example, for the opposition to then think that, okay, we have the urban vote, I think it would be naive for them to seriously think about that. So the level of protest that will increase does not necessarily mean that perhaps, ASN is losing ground or anything, or there's some emergence there. I think what is also important then is that civil society, let us look at how we possibly program. I think it's important. For me, if I was to do a critical assessment of civil society within Zimbabwe, I think we have sold our soul, and it really questions how the effectiveness of civil society to mobilize the constituents, the communities they are in. I know I talked about the restriction of the space. That let's say going to elections in 6 weeks' time. There hasn't been the civil society voice in terms of mobilizing young people or mobilizing people to go and register to vote. That space has been restricted to political parties. When I say political parties, I mean ZANU-PF precisely, because the space for even opposition to actually do that is very little. Yes, opposition has its pitfalls, and one of it is that it has not been able to really go into the communities to mobilize. But obviously, you can account that to the challenges of what ZANU-PF is doing on the ground. So I think well, coincidentally, organizations, civil society organizations, they've got there was a campaign that was being run by some certain organization which they termed My Vote Counts. Coincidentally, My Vote Counts was precisely trying to mobilize the youth vote, and because the youth, especially the generation 20, the 2000s, AMA 2000, to mobilize the AMA 2000 to register to vote. I think it was in 2018 elections. The campaign was very successful, but there's one thing to register to vote is one thing, but to actually go and vote on voting day is a different matter. So where are we losing the young people? Where are we losing the young people? I think it has so much to do with the communication. How do we incentivize young people to actually go and vote on voting day? And we have lost that. We have lost that because even in 2018, whilst there was success in voter registration campaign amongst young people, the number of young people who actually voted translated about 25%. So where are we losing it? Where are we losing it? I think the answer perhaps is very simple. I think we need to find how to get young people to be excited about voting. And if you engage young people around electoral democracy, they'll tell you that they do not believe in elections in Zimbabwe. That's the response. They do not believe things will change in Zimbabwe, largely because of they believe that in 2018 ZANU-PF lost the elections, and they actually voted for a young leader, and that did not translate into the actual, the actual thing. So they actually don't believe in electoral democracy because of what they see. But I think voting is. I'm a firm believer in electoral democracy. We need to vote, in spite of all the challenges about elections and the pitfalls of democracy. I think it's one option that we have, that we need to mobilize our communities to actually go and vote. We need to mobilize our communities to actually go and vote and try to change the system to change the system from its behavior. I personally don't believe. Yes, there are dynamics. Independent candidates are an alternative, But also you look at how in Africa in general how politics in Africa is generally is about party. Sometimes you don't exactly vote about vote for a policy. We don't vote about ideas. We vote about political party. We vote for political parties. That's what we vote for, not necessarily for ideas. And I find that in Zimbabwe, I think the momentum around elections has been around the economic decline. And this is how the opposition has been able to be popular. But the challenge then is, okay, there's a difference between voters and supporters. I think you have that in South Africa, voters and supporters. Voters are emotional, generally. Voters are emotional, as opposed to supporters who go out and defend a particular idea, to go out there and defend the status quo, because of I think not knowing what will happen post the changes. So we need to look at that. Are we going to mobilize voters, or are we going to talk about political parties? I mean, supporters. So I think that's another question that you want to look at. Then I want to talk about the communication that we also have, and this is the arrogance of ZANU-PF, the ruling party. The arrogance. There's a lot of conversations around Twitter, around social media, about politics in general, and it's critical conversations. And we talk about real things, talk about policy on conversations. But I would say I think we, as civil society, we failed to then rally the conversations, which are very important, to translate into specific campaign messages, to take the messages into spaces that are important. And ZANU-PF is so arrogant. They'll tell you that, Zimbabwe is not your conversations, your Twitter voters, your Twitter conversations, they don't translate to vote. Your twimbos don't vote. Which is actually true. People don't vote. We participate in conversations in social media, but don't actually vote. And that then it is important then to take the messages to the actual people, to your communities, and try to resonate the message with the people, with your people. I think you've got different constituencies. You've got communities that are affected by water crisis. Speak their language, get into their minds, and try to message your issues around what actually they talk about, which is why it is important to then also think about local government elections. Local government, they're very important because they connect with people. They connect with people in specific areas. And when you want to talk about national elections, then that's something else. But I think you need to shape your messages to resonate with the actual people. And earlier I talked about how civil society has lost its way in Zimbabwe. And I want to caution you on that particular area. And then the challenges around the responses of government. You're going to elections, perhaps because of those uprising in communities. Do not be surprised. This is one of the threats of societies, and how regimes react, and they're very real. You may start to see militarization. You may start to see brutalization of communities, use of force, use of violence. I mean, state violence, organized violence, state violence, because the state is the one that's got monopoly of violence. You may start to see that very often deployed in communities, and that instills fear. And with that, it starts perpetuating a system. And slowly, you start seeing yourself, and as we are slowly turning into a Zimbabwe, our Zimbabwean politics. And that's a threat that you're possibly faced with. You may start to see legislation that is favoring, that tries to shrink the political space. It's very possible. So you need to guard against that. You may start to also see a weaponization of the judiciary. It's happening. I've seen it happening in Zimbabwe. We never thought it would happen post-Mugabe, but I've seen it. I've seen opposition or human rights defenders, civil society activists being arrested for trumped-up charges for absolutely nothing. So those are threats that you need to guard against and protect those spaces, which is important. So I think this is some bit of reflection that I had from, I don't know, Zimbabwe is in your south? I don't know. No. It's your north. Reflections from your north. So we call you your south. So maybe we can discuss and interrogate further how we can possibly then move forward on that. Thank you.